Well, so like one of the first plays in the game, Jamison Williams, his first catch and touchdown. On the other hand, it came on a play that you could have scored because all he did is like jog slowly into the bust.
Speed.
Behind
Speed
the defense.
Speed creates coverage bust.
And what this was an example of, I have rarely seen a game where one coordinator is a step ahead of the other coordinator on the other side every play. You know the way like half of games are sort of trying to set one thing up and then bait and switching?
Yeah.
You know, like you show them one thing, and then later in the game you come back to it and you make them bite on the thing you showed them earlier, and then you hit them with something else. Well, this was like every play. The Ben Johnson, the Lions offensive coordinator, was just a step ahead of Ed Donatel, the Vikings defense coordinator. So everything he did was just suckering Donatel into doing something and then hitting him with something else. It was insane. I don't know if I've ever seen a guy be always one step behind the entire play. It was like the World Cup's going on, penalty shootouts, right? You're in this world sometimes where, well, okay, you scored the first one, you went left. Now you've scored the second one, you went left. Well, now you're in this sort of weird cat and mouse thing where do you go left with the third one? Does the goalkeeper expect it to be left? Do you double fake him and go right?
Oh, I saw the fake move the other day, yeah.
But, you know, you're in this sort of weird psychological world where, well, is he going to expect me to go here? Do I double bluff or do I just stick with what I know? This felt like that, but every single time, every single play, Ben Johnson appeared to have Ed Donatel just completely suckered and was hitting him with the counterpunch every single time.
All right, so Lions fans, they're tuning in. Like we might have a record number of Lions fans listening here.
Yeah.
And all they want is for you to properly credit their team.
I just have.
That's on a roll. No, you blamed Ed Donatel.
I didn't blame Ed Donatel. I said that Ben Johnson owned Ed Donatel.
No, I heard it. I know. I just want to make sure you're clear as day that the Lions are really good. Do it. Tell everybody.
This is the
Lions are awesome. Ben Johnson, Jared Goff, Penei Sewell. Did you see somebody redid, the meme, the Jamar
I'm
glad
Chase,
somebody did. Yeah, good.
Penei Sewell
I didn't
meme,
see it, but I'm glad somebody did.
Yeah, they redid it where Penei Sewell was both blocking and the receiver, which it turns out is the ultimate success for this. Yeah, so this is the first game this year where I've honestly understood why the Lions offense was succeeding. Because there's a lot of games this season where where they put up a ton of points, and you watch it, you're like, I don't really get why this is working. They're not dominant in terms of the athletes they're deploying on the field. They're not better than you man for man across the board, but it's racking up points. Like Goff has never been grading well because he makes mistakes. This was the game, though, where Goff did have a pretty clean game, didn't screw anything up. But it was the game where you saw highlighted so obviously just how far ahead they are coaching-wise. Like Ed Donatel is not a bad coach, but he was just behind the eight ball the entire way, and everything Detroit did. Like they got, I forget which receiver it was for the touchdown, but they got him matched up, isolated on a safety, one-on-one in off-man coverage in the end zone. Like that's a free touchdown. Like it's an absolute gimme. And they were doing that.
Josh Reynolds?
Yeah, probably.
Because the Chark one was an absolute dime.
Right, the Chark one was but yeah, they got Josh Reynolds, a wide receiver, matched up with a safety on the backside of the play in off coverage in the end zone. Like that's as pitch and catch as it gets in terms of a free score. You're never going to get an easier coverage than that in the red zone. And they got that matched up simply by the play call and the design and the fake, toss play to the front side. Like they just absolutely wrecked the Vikings, and the Vikings defense stinks.
I do want to highlight a negative for the Vikings defense. So this season, Jared Goff, I think, is going to end up with his highest passing grade of the season. So this season, quarterbacks with their highest passing grade against the Vikings defense. We have Jared Goff yesterday, Mac Jones on Thanksgiving, which, by the way, that grade, I think he had an 85 or something like that.
It was by far his best game of the season.
I don't even think he's been in the 70s in other games. Jalen Hurts, who's had a really good season, but his best game did come against the Vikings. And if you do want to give credit to Skylar Thompson / Teddy Bridgewater, as a combo after Tua was out that game. No, Tua didn't play that game. As a combo, those guys had their best games as well. That's kind of tough to do. To give 4 quarterbacks this season or combos their very best grade
Yeah.
of the season through 14 weeks, just to highlight something. It's also from a Vikings perspective. We had talked about how Kirk Cousins is not having the same statistical season or even throw-for-throw season. This was good, man. This was Cousins and Justin Jefferson did everything they could to keep the Vikings in this game. And I'm not saying the Vikings should be chasing this offensive performance, but if you told me Kirk Cousins is going to throw for over 400 yards, over 10 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, there's no turnovers, no interceptions in there, and Justin Jefferson is going to set a Vikings record with 223 yards, the Vikings should win this game. But the Lions did a great job up front against Dalvin Cook once again. I mean, the Lions, here's what I see with the Lions. This Dan Campbell, everything that we thought he would bring to the table early in the season, they were just off enough. But this team that decided they want to have a great offensive line, win in the trenches, great defensive line, win in the trenches, they're starting to do that there, right? Aiden Hutchinson was fantastic in this game. He was dominating, just winning a ton. They beat up the Vikings offensive line across the board. And in addition to, you've also got good play calling and everything that you were mentioning. So this is Dan Campbell's team, man. And seeing the Lions completely turn things around, especially defensively here in the second half of the season.
Dalvin Cook's fumble was a huge turning point in this game. So just before the end of the first half, the Lions are up 14-7. It looks like the shootout that a lot of people were talking about before the game. The Vikings have first and goal from the 3 with like a minute left, just before halftime. They're going to be in a really good position to answer, to go into the break 14-0 or 14-all rather. The Vikings are getting the ball to start the second half, so it's that classic can you double dip before either side of halftime thing. They call a run play that was just dead on arrival. Like the Lions had it absolutely snuffed out. Dalvin Cook was going to get nothing. In fact, he was going to lose yardage. Then he compounds the problem and fumbles the ball away. And the Lions end up recovering. They missed their field goal, so they didn't add points to it. But they turned 14-14 into a 14-7 lead at halftime. And then the Vikings get the ball at the start of the third quarter. Didn't get anything going on that drive either and punted away. So like those drives either side of halftime are so important for the outcome of games. And Detroit managed to turn what looked like a almost certain 7 points for Minnesota into nothing for either one of those drives.
By the way, that's what I think also really impresses me about the Lions. Like the Bears game. So the Vikings just kept trying to come back, right? So you've got this team that's 10-3. The Lions get up 21-7. They blew a lead against the Vikings earlier in the season, right? It easily could have been, same old Lions. We get up early. Vikings get within a score right before the half. But the Lions kept fighting back, right? They kept counterpunching, right? So then they get up 28-13. Hold the Vikings to a field goal. They bring a field goal of their own. Vikings get within 8 once again, and the Lions answer and put a drive together for a 48-yard field goal to put it out of reach, right? So in games where – so the Lions did that against the Bears a few weeks back where it was like, all right, the Lions are going to blow another lead against the Bears, and the Lions didn't let it happen. So I'm impressed with how they continue to counterpunch and battle back and not blow these leads. Maybe they would have earlier in the season when the defense was struggling, or last season, or whatever you want to call it. But the Lions are 6-7 now. Since that guy emailed in and said they could run the table and go to the playoffs, they have, other than a Thanksgiving loss to the Bills.
Right.
And the Lions have been great.
Where they ran them close.
Very good game.
It is so. Number one, two sides of the same coin. Number one, a team with a 6-7 record, which is where Detroit are right now, have made the playoffs in the last 4 consecutive seasons. So, Detroit running the table, getting to the postseason, it's on. On the other hand, even winning this game, it tripled their chances of making the playoffs, but it turned it from 7% to 21%. So there's still only a 21% chance of making the postseason from this point. But a team with a 6-7 record has done it for the last 4 years. Like it's on, but it's still unlikely.
The way they're trending and all that stuff, wouldn't you rather see the Lions sneak in than say the Giants?
Oh, sure. Yeah, like if they continue, like at this point, Philadelphia looks amazing. San Francisco somehow looks amazing with Brock Purdy at quarterback, and then almost the entirety of the rest of the NFC stinks. So from that point of view, you would absolutely want one of the teams that's surging late on, whether it's Detroit, whether it's Washington, to make it over a team that's busy collapsing just because, it's got to be better.